Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraj Acharya Ashto Taraswati Shishima Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraj Acharya Ashto Taraswati Shishima Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Thakur Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपिनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मायापुर धाम की गंगमाई की जमुनमाई की देवी की भक्तवृंद की Jai Gopanandi Srila Prabhupada Avirbhava Mahotsava Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Vyas Puja Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So it's a pleasure to be able to address you today. Unfortunately, I got a little short notice. I was going to put a picture of Prabhupada behind me, but anyway, I'm sure everyone has many pictures of Srila Prabhupada. So thank you all for joining today. So of course, the topic is Sri Vyasa Puja. And I'd like to speak a few words from some of the things that Srila Prabhupada said, and also some things that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. I'm going to read the famous verse from Bhagavad Gita 9:34. So if anyone wants to go to that verse with your electronic or paper versions of Shastra, then you're welcome. Tadvidi pratipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatpadarshina. So I just read the translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Purport. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can become a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process as the fashion of foolish pretenders. In the Bhagavatam 6.3.19, the Bhagavatam 6.3.19 says, Dharman tu sakshad bhagavat pranita. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Please be sure to mute your microphones. Thank you. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one on the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. No one should, not only should one hear submissively from a spiritual master. But one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. Therefore, when the student, please be sure to mute your microphone. Mapati, please mute everyone's microphone. Therefore, when a student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganam Jana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Taratishwa Padantika Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadha Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So you have to excuse me. I just got notice a little late about this class. And since I have another class which was already programmed, and since I didn't hear anything, it's scheduled right after this one, very soon after this one. So anyway, I'll have to end at 11:30 your time. So I just wanted to chant one time. Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripasindubhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So I was saying that, so Srila Prabhupada, many times, of course, he made several lectures on Vyas Puja, but one thing I remember very clearly is that Srila Prabhupada, he always mentioned that someone may see this as what is called anthropolatry. Anthropolatry means worship of man. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would use the term, excuse me, I just had a little mucus from yesterday. He would sometimes use the term anthropomorphism, but actually anthropomorphism technically means, although we understood what Prabhupada meant, it technically means that one worships some animated or some animal or some other figure as a man, and therefore sometimes demigod worship, because sometimes demigods look a little bit like something different from a human. That's called anthropomorphism. But usually it means, like in the ancient civilizations, of course, even in Trinidad, there were the indigenous tribes, and North America, South America, even in India, Africa, like the American Indians with the US, they had the totem pole where they had different figures and they worshiped them as different gods. So anyway, that's just a technical point. So Prabhupada said, this is not the This is not what we're doing here. But Prabhupada said, this Vyas Puja comes from Vyasadeva. That's why we call it Vyas Puja, although we may be worshiping our spiritual master. But Srila Prabhupada made it very clear in one of his famous Vyas Puja offerings, to which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur recognized him and told his disciples, anything he writes, you publish it, which of course they didn't follow. And Srila Prabhupada said, he quoted from the Bhagavatam, Acharyam man bijaniya navamanyata karichit namartya buddhi useta sarvadeva maya guru. That from the Bhagavatam, we understand that one should worship the Acharya and never be envious of the Acharya or think that he is an ordinary person. But actually he has within himself all the qualities of all the devas. And of course, in the Bhagavatam, it also says, Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Kinchana Sarvar Gunais Tattva Samasate Sura, that the that when one is actually situated in Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Kinchana, when one has Bhagavat Bhakti, worshiping the Supreme Lord Akinchana without any self-interest, then that person has within them all the qualities of the demigods, otherwise very qualified person. So to address this particular point of man worship, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he actually spoke a very wonderful, very wonderful speech, where he said basically that that who is this? You must all be thinking here in the audience, who is this person? Everyone here has an ordinary seat, but this person has a big, lofty seat. And just like an animal from the zoo, sitting there, a big brute, and so complacent to receive so many adulations, so many praises, sitting there so contently, hearing it all, soaking it all in. So, and this person, and he says, I agree. People should instruct me about this, but I am so arrogant that people fear to instruct me that I will chastise them. He said, therefore, I put my case, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that because it was true. It was not because he was arrogant, but because he was so spiritually qualified. He knew all the Vedas, everything in the Vedas by memory. He could pull any verse out of any Veda, out of any scripture, out of any Purana, and state it. So people were afraid. Even when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was sent by Bhaktivinoda Thakur to speak to the Smarta Brahmins about that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas were actually qualified. They were qualified Brahmins. So when they heard he was coming, they were upset. So he said, don't worry, I won't quote from Bhagavad Gita. I won't quote from Srimad Bhagavatam. I won't quote from, he gave a whole bunch of things he wouldn't quote from. And then he quoted from other things, and they couldn't even speak. He was so qualified. So he said, I have to put my case. I have to put my case before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what is that case? What is his case that he's putting before Mahaprabhu? He's putting in the case that Jari Dekatari Kaha Krishnupadesh Amara Gyaya Guru Anyatare Desh. He said, what can I do? This is the instruction of Mahaprabhu. And how can this instruction be there when Mahaprabhu said, Trinadapi sunichena taroriva sehishnuna amani namani dina kituniya sadahari, that one should be more humble than a blade of grass. So how can I be sitting here on this seat? He said, Amara Gyai Guru, that the order from my Gurudev is that I should also take up this service. And not only should I take up this service, but Jari Dekatari Kaha, I should spread this to everyone. He said, so in doing so, I must obey my Guru, who is telling me that I must do this. I must obey Sriman Mahaprabhu, who's telling me to do this. But I must not occupy this post for self-aggrandizement, or for doing malice to others, or for causing difficulties to other persons. I must do it because it is the order of the spiritual master. He said, otherwise, if I don't do it, I am being negligent. I am denying the instruction and the authority of my spiritual master. I am giving in to interpretation and not following. Just as we just read the words from Srila Prabhupada in his purport, that one has to follow, one has to be submissive, one has to inquire, and one has to serve according to the instructions of the spiritual master, not interpreting, not inventing. The biggest problem in the world, as I've mentioned maybe in some class in Trinidad, about religion, is that the most popular religion is whatever I believe. And I've also found that this is creeping in to ISKCON. People are interpreting. People think because they see something wrong that I will now invent my own process of Krishna consciousness. Or I will follow my guru, but I won't follow anyone else. Even though my guru has told me, has given me initiation under the guidance of other devotees. One time, Srila Prabhupada, he was asked the question that that if you what Prabhupada, one devotee said, Prabhupada, this is the first time I'm seeing you. So how can I get the association of the spiritual master, which is recommended? And Prabhupada said, temple president, he is spiritual master. Otherwise, meaning that he is a spiritual master, at least has the authority of the spiritual master in administrative issues. And other senior devotees who are Shiksha Gurus, who are working there, who are the ones, especially in our ISKCON movement, we can say that Srila Prabhupada, he did everything himself. But in our ISKCON movement, it's usually temple preachers, community preachers. They're doing the work. They're meeting the people. They're giving them books. They're bringing them into Krishna consciousness. They're teaching them. They're giving them classes. And then someone who initiates comes, and they also preach, and they also try to enliven their disciples and all devotees. But they're not doing all the work. This is a pluralistic society where we have many instructors, just as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in the beginning of Kalyana Kalpataru, I offer my prostrated obeisances to my spiritual master and to my one Diksha Guru and to my unlimited Shiksha Gurus. And of course, in the Bhagavatam, we find that the Brahmin who defines everything as his guru. And actually a devotee, when they're on the Mahabhagavat platform, because they can see Krishna everywhere, then they see Krishna in everything that happens in their life, and therefore they see everything as guru. That is the position of the Mahabhagavat. And therefore the Mahabhagavat sometimes doesn't preach. Sometimes they come to the Madhyam platform and preach, and sometimes they remain on that, seeing that everything is perfectly arranged by the Supreme Personality of God. So then This instruction, Jadi Rekatari Kaha, was given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, am I to give the mantra, and then the disciple, I instruct the disciple, now you beat me on the head with your shoe. Now you hit me with a broomstick. Now you neglect everything I say because I'm not acting in pure humility. But my humility is to follow the instruction of Mahaprabhu, to follow the instruction of my Guru Dev. And if I don't do that, if I don't sit on this seat and give instruction, then I am not fulfilling. And if I don't accept that people say Jai or Guru Dev or something else in my praise, because it is not praise for me. It is praise for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am just his instrument. And Srila Prabhupada said again and again, and in several Vyas Puja lectures, Srila Prabhupada said, this is the secret. The secret is parampara. The secret is that Krishna is giving the message, Teni Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. He has given the message to Brahma. Brahma has given the message to Narada. Narada has given the message to Vyasa. And thus the disciplic succession continues. And it is taking that instruction from the disciplic succession and passing it on to everyone else. That is the real meaning of spiritual life. That is the real meaning of parampara. That is the real meaning of guru. Just like sometimes one is hesitant to act as guru in the presence of someone else's or someone who's superior. That is Vaishnava etiquette. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in contact with Nityananda Prabhu, Nityananda Prabhu joined his Leela, his pastimes. Then after they met and they had their ecstatic kirtan, the next day was Guru Purnima. So on that Guru Purnima, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, let us all worship Nityananda. He is the Guru. Because Nityananda is Balaram. Balaram is considered to be the Guru, the first person after Krishna that brings everyone to Krishna. So, and of course, then there's the disciplic succession. So they went to the house of Srivas Thakur. Srivas prepared all the paraphernalia, and there was a big garland. So Mahaprabhu told Nityananda, so we are honoring you. Please give the garland to Vyasadeva. They had an asan with some representation. I don't know if they had a painting or what of Vyasadeva. So Nityananda took the garland and walked toward Vyasadeva. But then he started turning around. And he turned around and looked at Mahaprabhu and went to Mahaprabhu and put the garland on him, showing that even though one may be honored as Guru, one always sees that I am simply doing this service on behalf of my spiritual master. This is the meaning of Vyasa Puja. And of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that if one thinks that I cannot do this, and Srila Prabhupada also said the same thing in this instruction given to Kurma Brahman by Mahaprabhu, the next verse after he said Jari Dekatari Kaha, because Mahaprabhu anticipated that Kurma Brahman would say, I'm not qualified. I'm a grihasta. I'm living at home. So he said, Kabu na bhadi be tomara vishay taranga, purarapi e thani, pabe murasanga. That if you follow this instruction, your materialistic life at home, or vishaya taranga means following the current of materialistic society. Otherwise, that was his concern. I don't want to, I'm being overwhelmed by this materialistic society. Uh, this current of materialistic life or your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, if you follow these regulative principles, we will again meet here, or rather, you will never lose my company. So on the basis of that, Srila Prabhupada said that uh, just as uh, just as the he said, just as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a grihasta. Not only was he a grihasta, he was a magistrate. He had to spend his whole day, although his whole day was basically 4 hours or 6 hours sometimes in the court, because he was so amazing. He could try cases in 5 minutes, which normally would take anyone else months or years. As we all know, we've all had, well, anyone who's had a legal case has had this experience that it could take a year, especially in India, maybe Trinidad, I don't know, but in India, also in the US, sometimes a case can go on for 1 year, 2 years. In India, it can go on for 20 years. And Prabhupada mentioned one case where the man died and his children took the case and they died. And then the judge died and the lawyer died. And so, just the case disappeared. So, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had children. But still, he was the Acharya. Prabhupada said he was Paramahansa. So Prabhupada said, I want my Grihastha devotees to be Paramahansa. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said in his famous speech that he said the materialistic gurus, meaning the people from Apa Sampradayas, because of their envy, they will quote from Bhagavatam what we just quoted, Acharya Mam Bijaniyan, that they will say, who is this person? This person is not, he's envious of his guru, and therefore he's assuming. But they're saying that because they're envious, because a real Vaishnava guru, who is actually humble in all of his dealings with others, but thoroughly and properly represents his spiritual master, which is the purpose of Vyas Puja, then people will go and listen to him, and therefore the envious pseudo-gurus will criticize him for doing that when they themselves simply want honor and respect. So the important thing on Vyas Puja day, as Srila Prabhupada said to his spiritual master, let me simply represent you. Let me, if I have to take crores and crores of births in this material world, let me simply always remain your servant. And what did Srila Prabhupada say about his relationship with Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur? He said, every time, if you look, anytime there's some credit, Srila Prabhupada would say, the credit goes to my Guru Maharaj. And one time he said, if I have any credit, it is due to two things. One, this is the mercy and the arrangement of my Guru Maharaj. And this is also because he has instilled in me complete faith in the holy name. If I have any qualification, these are my qualifications, that I have firm faith in the instructions of my Guru, and I have the conviction that I should follow him. Actually, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes faith, what is full faith? Faith, Shraddha Sabde, Vishvasya Kalhe, Sudrida Nishtai, Krishna Bhakti, Kaila Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. That faith means that I have the unbreakable and constant faith and conviction that by performing Krishna consciousness, everything else will be accomplished. Because this is the instruction. This was the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. One time Srila Prabhupada said that to one devotee, I think there were a few devotees there, and Srila Prabhupada said that if you please make sure your microphones are. Prabhupada said that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. There's some noise came on. Srila Prabhupada said that his spiritual master was the most perfect person, and that his spiritual master was sending. Prabhupada was actually crying that he is so merciful to me that he has sent all of you. He was speaking to his disciples. He has sent all of you to carry out his mission. So, on one hand, Srila Prabhupada is sitting on the Vyasasana, and he is instructing us. Sometimes he's shouting. One time, Bhakti Charu Maharaj mentioned, since he has unfortunately left our presence, such a great loss. Actually, I was trying to get him to come to Trinidad, and he said, maybe I'll come, but anyway, it didn't happen. So he said one time, Prabhupada, when this was in the last month, I think maybe 2 months of Prabhupada's time with us, his physical time with us in this world. And so he said that Prabhupada said he generally wasn't eating, but then one day Prabhupada said to fix this and this and this. And he told him to get, I think it was bindi or, okra, make an okra preparation. It was either okra or no, it was Karela. And so he went to the market and got everything, but he forgot the Karela. So then Prabhupada, he came into Prabhupada's room. He began to cook the other things, and he sent a devotee to the marketplace to look for a Karela. And the devotee came back and said, I can't find it anywhere. And he was in anxiety. So when Prabhupada called him, he said, so everything is there? And he said, yes. He said, actually, I didn't tell Prabhupada the truth. I lied to him because I didn't have the Karela. And so then the devotee, finally, he started asking people, and he found one Karela. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj very quickly went and fixed that Karela for Prabhupada. And so he brought it in a little later than everything else. And Prabhupada took it, and then he heard the bell ring very, very strongly. Sometimes Prabhupada would go ding, ding, ding. That meant you come. But if he went ding, 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 it meant that he was angry. So he came in, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and Prabhupada said, why have you made this Karela like this? I have taught you personally how to do this. Why are you doing it like this? And he said Prabhupada was angry with him for 3 days. 3 days. And finally, he said, Prabhupada, actually, I had forgotten the Karela and I didn't tell you. And Prabhupada said, yes, I know. That's why I chastised you. So immediately, when Prabhupada decided that the chastisement was sufficient, there was no more anger. So this is Acharya. This is the spiritual master. There may be anger to instruct the disciple, but at the same time, his inner feeling is always, my Guru Maharaj has sent these people. And of course, that may even be more relevant in our case, because Srila Prabhupada actually, he went out empty-handed, and he started this Krishna consciousness movement. Whereas most of us have taken up those of us who give initiation, we've taken up this responsibility. And therefore, it's not that we're teaching everyone everything. We're giving spiritual instruction. We may teach certain things to certain devotees, but mostly it's the other devotees who are teaching most of the details of Krishna consciousness, and we're enforcing that. So this is the position, and this is the difficulty. Therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said on another occasion that being guru is the most difficult thing, because you have to sit on the Vyasa-san, and you have to criticize the Vaishnavas, you know, and then which is something that's condemned in all the Shastras. You have to criticize the Vaishnavas, and you have to tell everyone what to do, when actually the position of the Vaishnava is to never criticize anyone and to always be an obedient servant. So he said, this is the difficulty of being guru. Otherwise, he's saying to do this, and at the same time, within one's own mind, within one's own heart, to maintain that position. So when we think of Vyas Puja and the Vyas Puja of Srila Prabhupada, we should see this example, the example of what Srila Prabhupada said himself, that the spiritual master is on the one hand like a rose, meaning very soft and gentle, and on the other hand, the spiritual master can be hard as a thunderbolt. And actually, Srila Prabhupada said on several occasions that that a spiritual master who does not chastise the disciple is committing violence. And of course, this comes from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it says one of the weeds that invades the heart is jiva himsa. And jiva himsa, Srila Prabhupada, violence against the jiva, or the living entity, means that one has the opportunity to give Krishna consciousness to someone and doesn't do it. That this is violence. One has to do it. And so, so these are, so anyway, I wanted to go back to the point of Srila Prabhupada saying that he spoke about one of his disciples. He said, just like Bhagavan, he is Grihastha, but I am telling him, you must be Paramahansa. And Prabhupada explained what a Paramahansa is. It means it's usually the highest stage of sannyas life. First, a sannyas is kutichak, meaning that he lives separately from his family, but his family brings him food and necessities. They leave it on the doorstep. Then bahudak. Then he goes out and begs from door to door to develop humility. And then parivrashakacharya. Once he develops humility, he goes out and preaches. And then Paramahansa, when he's fully realized in the science of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada said, I want that my Grihastha gurus, my Grihastha devotee disciples be Paramahansa and follow this instruction, Jari Dekatari Kaha Krishna Upadesh, that wherever you go, whomever you meet, you must, my agya, guru, you must follow my instruction. You must be guru. So this is something that we all have to learn from this Vyas Puja. Vyas Puja means that the spiritual master is giving to the disciples spiritual knowledge, and he also has to convey to them the instruction of Mahaprabhu. One instruction is what I just said, that everyone you meet, everywhere you go, you become guru and give Krishna consciousness. And the other one, which I've quoted many times, Atta eva ami agya rula sabakari jahantahan prema pala deha jaritari, which says that my instruction to every person within this universe is that they must take what I am teaching them and give these fruits of love of Godhead to everyone wherever they go, anyone and everyone. So we should also meditate on this. When we meditate on Vyas Puja, on worshiping the spiritual master, what is the main thing that the spiritual master wants? Does he want some fruit? Does he want a garland? Actually, garlands, usually they itch on the neck, so especially if someone put leaves in the back. So at least in my case, I don't find garlands to be so comfortable. But we accept. But and Prabhupada said in one of his Vyas Puja offerings, my dear godbrothers, it was a little heavy, called the Virahastakam, remembering the instructions of the Acharya. Please mute your microphones. Someone has their microphone open. So he was saying that that this, sorry, when I have to say that, sometimes I lose my chain of thought. So he's instructing the spiritual master to go. He's instructing all of us to take up this Krishna consciousness. The most important thing is to do what Mahaprabhu said. So what did Mahaprabhu say? One thing, you be humble like a blade of grass, and another thing, you become guru. No, don't think that Grihastha life means I sit at home and, whenever I can, I go to a temple, to some function, and whenever I can, I try to chant my rounds, and this is all right in the beginning. In the beginning, just like in the beginning, we may read in Srila Prabhupada's books that you offer food. So we don't know how to offer food. We say, oh my Lord, please accept this. Krishna will accept. But if you've been trained and initiated, then that's not how you do it. There's a whole different thing. So in the beginning, we may be sit at home and try to go to the temple when we can, try to be a good devotee. But after you've been a devotee for some time, we should understand that the obligation to the spiritual master increases more and more and more. It doesn't decrease, it increases. Even if one, I've many times said, even if one is a brahmachari or a young devotee enthusiastically going out to distributing hundreds of books, then one gets married, has to work. I can't go out and distribute books. But internally, one has to continue to develop these Vaishnava qualities within oneself. It's not that the Grihastha life means that one time I said this in Spain, and I was just a little joke, but people took it very seriously. I said Grihastha life doesn't mean that I spend the next 25 years to remember what I was doing 25 years ago at the end of the 25 years. Otherwise, and of course, usually it lasts more than 25 years. Of course, that depends on if it's a good marriage. If it's not a good marriage, it may last for 2 years or 1 year. But then usually one doesn't take sannyas after that. One or vanaprastha. One looks for another partner. So this is Kali Yuga. But at least within our married, not married, whatever our situation is, we should understand the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he personally showed himself. He first had his Grihastha life, which lasted very short time, meaning being married. And even then he was instructing people. He was spreading Krishna consciousness indirectly through his grammatical teaching. And then he traveled all over India. Even before, he traveled preaching, and Lakshmi Priya left out of separation, left her body. But he did that. Then he left again to take sannyas and preach, leaving Vishnu Priya, 16 years old, and Sachi Mata. And then, after all that, then finally he went to Jagannath Puri. And even in Jagannath Puri, he would instruct his disciples. And only the last 6 years did he become totally absorbed in samadhi. And still he was preaching. Still he would preach sometimes to devotees, but he was mostly absorbed in, because that's what he came for. He came, all of his, practically speaking, all of his reasons for coming was to understand the love of Srimati Radharani. So anyway, that's another subject. But the point is that Vyasa Puja, so Srila Prabhupada said something very important here about Vyasa Puja. And that very important thing is that in Vyas Puja, we make this promise, which Krishna has emphasized, that Tadvidi Pranipatina. So there's three things: Pranipatina, uh, uh, Prashna or Pariprashna. Pariprashna means what Prashna means to ask, and Pariprashna means to ask again and again and again and again. So, and then Sevaya. So Prabhupada, on three different occasions that I've heard, said the order should be different. First, Pratipatina, one should be submissive, one should be humble, one should be dedicated to the orders and instructions of the spiritual master, of the Shastra, and then, but submissive. And then Prabhupada said, then Sevaya, then one should submissively do devotional service. And then one can ask questions, because then your questions will be relevant. Prabhupada said, don't waste the time of Guru Maharaj in encyclopedic inquiries. Of course, with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you could do that and he could answer everything because he learned English by memorizing the Encyclopedia Britannica. But most of us can't do that. So, of course, now we have internet, which is like electronic Shrutidar. We can be an electronic Shrutidar by just going to our folio or the internet and find some answer. But sometimes that answer may not be true. But what we hear from Shri Guru. So Vyas Puja means that. Two things. One submissively hears from Guru, and one, as Srila Prabhupada quoted in one Vyas Puja ceremony, the famous verse from Kapila Dev, Satam Prasangam Mama Virya Sambido Bhavanti Karna Rasayana Kata, that one hears from the qualified person who is always engaged in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead and allows that message to go into the ear and penetrate the heart. So the instructions of the Guru have to reach the heart. Not that they're not suggestions. Well, maybe, if you like, and if it's okay with you, you can do this. But the instructions have to reach the heart, which means conviction. This is what I will do. This is the basis of my existence. There's nothing else. I don't know anything else. Otherwise, meaning everything else I have to do pertains to maintaining the body. But my real objective, my goal in life, is to receive these instructions from Sri Guru Dev. So this is the basic meaning of Vyas Puja. And unfortunately, we're out of time now. And but I could, if anybody has a question, if there are any questions, you can raise your electronic hand on participants, or you can put it in the chat. I can take five minutes or so for any questions. So we were very fortunate to celebrate today the Vyas Puja of Srila Prabhupada. I hope that everyone will dedicate this day. Actually, I want to give a suggestion to every temple, whoever is listening, and you can suggest it to your temple authority, that because generally speaking, I see that Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja is one of the least attended and one of the poorest prepared Vyas Pujas. Sometimes I see a Vyas Puja of some present Guru, and there's hundreds of devotees, thousands of devotees, big arrangement, huge Vyasas. And then Prabhupada, usually people are getting up around, there's a few very diligent people who will get up at 4 a.m. after taking rest at 2, or not taking rest at all, and will make it through the whole program. But by 10 or 11 o'clock, when we read some offerings, I was going to read my offering, but unfortunately I haven't even opened up the link yet to do that. The link, I sent a link to almost everyone, but I myself haven't looked at it. So I want to offer it first to Srila Prabhupada. But anyway, I would suggest that 3 days before Janmashtami, that you start celebrating the appearance of Srila Prabhupada. Because otherwise everybody's wiped out. Even if there's a class, people are sleeping because they're so tired from the night before. And so anyway, this is, we're so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada appeared on Nandotsava, or the day where we worship Nanda Maharaj's offering to Krishna. And that's when we're actually supposed to take the feast. The feast is not supposed to be taken at midnight. It's supposed to take a little prasadam to honor Krishna's appearance. And then the next day in Nandotsava, we take, just like on day after Gaur Purnima, we take prasadam on Jagannath Mishra's appearance day. So someone had their hand up. I think it was Priya Rupa, but it went down. So anyway, I was ready to answer it. I just wanted to say that. So I would just encourage everyone to do that. Oh, there it is. Okay, there's her. Okay, Priya Rupa, you want to state your question?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I just want to take this quick opportunity to give a quick homage to Srila Prabhupada and myself. I just want to tell him thank you for everything he did in bringing Krishna consciousness to me and to us and to everyone. I love that point that you made about celebrating Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja 3 days before. It is such an important festival. And my question was, you said that we should hear from the Guru submissively, and it should go into the air and penetrate the heart. Would you be able to talk a little more about how we could get into that consciousness where we could hear from our spiritual master in a way that it goes into our ears and we hear it and it penetrates our heart? Please. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
It's not a mechanical thing. It's not like if I eat oats, then it will happen, or if I drink a moringa smoothie, then that will open up the channels. But we open up those channels by humble service. Humble service is the way, these two things, especially humility and tolerance. The more we practice humility and tolerance, the easier it is to understand. Because what is the interference? The interference is material desires within the heart. So therefore, we follow the recommendations of chapter 12 of Madhya Lila, how to cleanse the heart so that Krishna can come in. Because the spiritual master is the Bahya Guru, the external Guru. The internal Guru is Chaitya Guru, and the external Guru is Bahya Guru, the representative of Krishna. So basically, if we have humility and if we hear and chant every day nicely, then we're preparing our heart to receive those instructions. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then the instructions will be theoretical. Of course, Srila Prabhupada said sometimes we can't follow something. He said, my spiritual master told me in 1922 to do this. I could not do it immediately, but he said, not one day went by when I did not remember the instruction of my spiritual master and tried to do it to the best of my ability. So sometimes we may receive an instruction, either a general one or a specific one, and we can't do it right away, but we should always have great, be very, very determined that I must do it. Sometimes even devotees get in situations where they can't chant their 16 rounds. And then they should not justify it. They should think, because of this circumstance, I can't do it, but I must do it. I must get back to it. And that's basically what it means. So I see Achala Dharaka, he has his blue hand up. And
Hare
so,
Krishna, Gurudev. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. What would you say is the single most important instruction of Srila Prabhupada for all of us in ISKCON? If it's one instruction, all time, all devotees.
the most important instruction, of course, Srila Prabhupada said himself in Madhya Lila 22:113, the most important instruction of the spiritual master is to chant a prescribed number of rounds or more. But I consider even more important than that, Srila Prabhupada said, you must become pure devotees. Because if we become pure devotees, then we can spread Krishna consciousness like wildfire. If we remain in a materialistic, over-comfortable position, then we will not spread Krishna consciousness. No. If we won't have the potency, we may give some theoretical knowledge and people will see it that way. But when people feel the conviction within the heart of the devotee because of his purity, because of their purity, then the people will react because Paramatma will direct that devotee in his purity to people who are ready to hear. But if we don't have that purity, we'll just be directing ourselves to whoever we can and think that we're preaching, but our preaching will not have very much effect.
But what is the right move trying to be pure devotee? Because sometimes we may think that yeah, let's try to endeavor for that instruction, which is very reasonable, and but sometimes you may think, yeah, okay, I want to be a pure devotee, but it may seem to be egotistical. So what is the right mood of an aspirant, which is all of us, to becoming a pure devotee?
To strictly follow Guru Shastra Sadhu, to follow it and to dedicate ourselves to that. That's the essence. So we have to do that. We just have to do it. And that will make us pure devotees. Actually, the minimal qualification of being a pure devotee is that even though I may have impurities in my heart, I don't allow them to act because I'm strictly following the instructions of my Guru and of the Parampara. And therefore, because I'm strictly following, then I'm a pure devotee. As long as I'm following and not deviating, I am a pure devotee. But that purity depends on that taking exclusive shelter. Because whenever I go away, it's like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm Dr. Jekyll when I'm following, and I'm Mr. Hyde when I'm following my mind and my senses. So that's the literary manifestation of schizophrenia. So all of us have this schizophrenic tendency. I follow the Guru sometimes, and I follow my mind sometimes. So this is spiritual schizophrenia. We should try to give it up and try to be more serious in our Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
So here's a question. It's in Spanish, so I'll just read it and try to answer it. So it's a kind of a complex question. I'm going to ask the person I'm going to give another class because time has run out at 12:15 my time, which would be 7:15 Spain time. Could you please maybe at least attend the end of that class and I can answer this question. Basically, it says sometimes the authorities, they give instructions, but there's a desire to control. And sometimes that desire to control hurts the devotees. So anyway, the thing is that, yes, one has to, that requires tolerance. One, as Srila Prabhupada said, I can answer this more completely if you're able to go to the next class. I'm just letting her know. But Prabhupada said, you can, quoting Chanakya Pandit, we can take gold from a dirty place. So let us take whatever they can give us, take it and tolerate the rest. Understanding that for some reason, instead of being born under the directions of Rupa Goswami, I was born in Trinidad or Spain or here. And these are the people who Krishna has given me to associate with. He didn't put me in the association of Mahaprabhu. He didn't put me in Bengal so that I could be with Srila Prabhupada from the very beginning. He put me in Trinidad or Spain or USA, and he gave me these people. So let me tolerate whatever is difficult. Even St. Francis says this in Christianity, what to speak of our Vaishnava philosophy. And so let us be humble and tolerant. In humility, we can accept the beautiful things, and tolerate. In tolerance, we can avoid those things that are difficult to deal with. So anyway, now unfortunately, I will have to stop here because I have another class coming up, and I have to do some things before that class. So thank you all very much for your kind attention. I hope that everyone can utilize, have a wonderful festival, even if it's a virtual festival, and in your own home, offer some flowers, and more than anything, offer your hearts and your minds and your senses and your very lives to the service of Srila Prabhupada and his movement. That way he will become very pleased with all of us, and Krishna will give us fertile ground for spreading this Krishna consciousness movement. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Ananta Koti, Vaishnava, Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Hi.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Reverencia a todos los Vaishnavas.